Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tammy Ernest for those of you who are new, and I am a longarm quilter, and here on my channel I like to share customer finishes as well as my own projects. So I have a full episode today. I want to talk about texture with these three quilts here. I have some pressed flowers blocks to show you. I have a big reveal on my Calico Garden quilt top. It's all together. And then I have stacked up a ton of customer quilts here and behind me, and all of that to go over today. So I am so glad you're here with me. So first today, let's start with Pressed Garden Quilt Along. So I've been showing you each month my Sew Sampler box that comes in the mail from the Fat Quarter Shop. And starting in April, I believe, is when they started a new Quilt Along. Usually they do not run theirs from January to December. It usually starts sometime in the spring, runs through the first of the year, and when you finish up, and then they start the next one the following spring. So we have a total of 7 blocks, and I finished up block 6 and 7 in the last few days. So let me just give a reminder of what I'm using for this. The called for fabric line is the Sugarberry collection. It is a really cute line. If you want to get caught up on this, there's certainly time. We're only on block 7. You can pick up the fabrics, or you can use ones from your stash, and you can purchase all these patterns on the quilt or on the Fat Quarters Shop website individually. Mine comes in the Sew Sampler box each month, so you can do it that way as well. So there's a called for line is the Sugarberry line. That is a Bunny Hills design. It's a really cute line. I chose in the springtime when we started this to actually pull from my fabrics. I wanted to do a brown and pink quilt. So I started out with ones that I thought would look good. I've kind of made some changes over the months as I've created more. Realized that some of the fabrics I had chosen for, especially what would be the leaves of the flowers, I wanted to do more of a darker brown, and so I have kind of changed those over the last few months towards that more chocolate color look. So we'll see how it works. You know, if I don't like the way it works, I can always redo it, right? I still have the same, somebody will. So even if I don't like it, I know I've got plenty of family members that may like the colorway, and I can always make the same quilt again because I have the patterns. So as for all the background fabrics, you needed 3 1/3 yards to start with. A lot of the blocks use 2.5 inch squares or smaller. So I had a jelly roll of just some neutral colors. They all, again, it was kind of a cream background with white print over the top, all different designs. I don't know the name of this jelly roll. I don't even remember where I got it, but a lot of different designs. So polka dots, and I mean there's geometric stuff, there's swirls in this one, flowers in this one, a lot of geometric things, and so all different kinds. I'm kind of using some of them. I'll use just one print for the whole block, but there are some blocks that require larger than 2.5 inch, and so I did pick up another bit of yardage for those pieces, and I can probably tell you look at the selvage and see. No, nothing written on the selvage. Oh, maybe there is. Let me see what it says. Wilmington prints, but it's cut off what the line is. So that is what it looks like. The same colorway where it's the cream color background with the white print over the top. So it matches that whole jelly roll that I had. So I bought maybe a yard, maybe just a half yard at the beginning, because I've not cut too much off of this. Maybe I bought a whole yard. I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I'm using for the blocks that require a little bit of larger things. Like I said, sometimes they're 5 inch, sometimes they're 4.5 inch, so I'll use those. The other prints that I have, most of the pinks were from my stash. I did add a couple of those. I did add an Edyta Sitar. I love this. I'm sure this is still available. What is this line? Forget Me Not. Yeah, Edyta Sitar of Laundry Basket Quilts. A really cute, it's kind of a rosy pink, and I just really like that for this quilt. And these others are from my stash. This one, I believe, is a Camille Ross Kelly. This is her Sunny Side line, and I picked up a little bit of yardage of that. And then the others were just from my stash. I have a light pink. Try to get that. I have a light pink. This one was a little bit more yardage that I had, a little more rosy than the others, but a good variety. And then I started out with this lighter beige color, and I've kind of gravitated towards some more chocolates. So I have this one. I picked up this one at the quilt store. What is this line? This one is Wilmington Essentials for Wilmington. Essentials Graphic 45. So you can kind of see the very subtle print, but it does have a little bit of a print to it. This chocolatey one, and I have this chocolatey one. I really like the chocolate browns. And then I have, I think I just showed you that one. Is that the same one? Yeah. And then I did purchase some fabrics that were my in-person guild. We had an auction back in August, and I showed you the whole stack of brown prints that I picked up from there. So this is another one of those, minus the thread. All right, so let me show you some of the blocks that I have created with those fabrics. So block 6, which would have been the September block. This was the anemone block. And let me show you that one. This is how it turned out. So that print in the middle was one I had from my stash, and then the one around the outside was the Edyta Sitar one. Then this chocolate brown. Don't you love the pinks and the chocolate brown? I just think that is so cute. So out of the 2 blocks I'm going to show you today, this one was a little more time consuming just because you had a little more piecing. So you start with a square here, and then you add easy corner triangles onto this side, and then you add smaller easy corner triangles onto this side, and that is those 4 blocks there. And that's what creates this small star-like pattern there. These are half square triangle blocks, and then this one was a full block. And then again, to create the leaves, almost remind me of arrows. You could do a whole quilt with just this block right here with arrows, but easy corner triangles, just turned a couple different ways. But this one was a little more time consuming than the second one I'm going to show you. So it's the anemone block. Then for October, the block was zinnia. And that's what it looked like on the pattern. Now their flower was a lot darker than the fabric that I had picked out for that SKU number. So that's what this one looks like. So you can see not as much intricate piecing on this one. Again, some easy corner triangles here, here, and here, but there you just had 4 larger blocks. So when you put those together, you had your block. Easy corner triangles to create those diamond effects as well. And then a 4 patch right there. So really cute. This goes right along with the others. I can flip through the others real quick. I don't know the names of each one of these. I could look at them, but these are for the first 5 blocks that I have done. So you can see this is one of my early blocks that had the lighter brown. I like that pinwheel in the middle. Again, the lighter brown. And that one. Really cute. So I have 7 blocks finished, all caught up for October. Now that we're almost to November. But really fun to work on. It doesn't take that much time each month. And it's a fun thing to look forward to in the Sew Sampler box. So the other thing I wanted to show you was my calico garden. So I literally just wrestled with this whole thing off of camera, trying to even get it folded to a point where I could drape it over this and you can kind of see it. So I kind of think I'll just work in sections here so you can kind of see. I did use all the called for fabrics on this quilt along. I bought the whole kit from Fat Quarter Shop when this started back in January. So all the called for prints. Love the star flower blocks. Those go all the way around the quilt with some added in flower blocks in different spots. I really enjoyed piecing these star flower blocks, calico stars, whatever she called them. I enjoyed piecing those. And then all of the sashing in between, really nice. This is so fun. It feels so good to have a project completed. So I have I have ordered the wide backing that did not come in the kit, and I did find some wide backing, which was, I believe, the called for one. It's the milk can print, and I'm super excited about that. I actually ordered a couple other wide backings as well for some other Lori Holt quilts that I want to finish up. So when that wide backing gets here, should be here later in the week, then I will see if I can get an opportunity to put this on the long arm. I have not decided on my pantograph yet. I'm kind of contemplating some different things, whether I want to go with some flowers because of the whole garden theme, or whether I want to just go for texture. I'm kind of a texture girl, and we're going to talk about that in a minute with those quilts there. I really like texture on my quilts. I don't always like to do theme-wise, and I've mentioned this before because this quilt carries the flower theme, so I don't feel like I have to necessarily repeat the theme in my quilting. I can then change my quilting to become more of a texture, and adds a whole new dimension to the quilt. So I'm kind of leaning that way, but I haven't picked one. I don't want to use the same one over and over. I used Wishbone on my my Happy Place quilt that I did, and I'll link the video with that one last year when I showed that one. But I used the Wishbone pattern, and I really, really like the texture of that one, but I don't want to do the same thing with this one, so I may peruse some websites and see if I can't find a different one, or just pick one that I have. But it's always a good excuse to go shopping, isn't it? So let me show you a different section of the quilt. So in this part, this is the other upper corner. The lettuce block I've shown you, the flowers there, the bees, so cute. All the vegetables here. I am so glad. It's one of those, you know, I was getting pretty tired of applique, especially with these small little pieces here, but it is such a cute quilt when it's finished. And then here you can see the wheelbarrow. I really like this. Now if you remember these stars, I was not able to do Lori's method of applique when I got to these stars. They were just too tiny. I do have some arthritis in my hands, and I just could not get those turned. So I did these with steam-a-seam is what I did. Traced them on the steam-a-seam, and then used the fabric, cut that out, and just ironed it down to here and pressed it down, and then stitched around it. So they don't have quite the same depth, I want to say, as the rest of this, but they sure fit in fine. They look really good. And I really like the flower too. And you can continue to see around the border the different flowers that Lori included, and then interspersing the calico stars. You can see the cute garden girl. Isn't she adorable? Like I said, when I was putting this together earlier, it just really felt like you're playing with paper dolls with this one. Love her watering can and the flowers, and she's watering hollyhocks there. And the garden shed was a lot of fun to put together. Most of this was pieced, and so I did enjoy doing that part. I love the rickrack for the smoke at the top. Now on this part here, on the door right here, these are these lattice strips on the door. Those were made with the bias tape maker, And so when you stitched it into the block, you were really just stitching around the edges. So make sure if you're working on this block to go back and applique those lattice pieces down so that they don't get caught on anything as you're using the quilt. So I went and did all of those lattice strips. The outside edge here is all pieced down, so I didn't worry about that. I really just appliqued the lattice parts right there. I like this print right here makes it feel like the lights are coming through the door. That is the same print that's used in all of the sashing work around the edges. And these were some of the last blocks I did, the vegetables down here, so I appliqued all of those with the onions. All of the tops to the onions are created with the bias tape maker as well. The carrots are really cute, and the radishes. The whole fencing part is all pieced, so that was a fun part of the quilt. And you can see the chickens. I do need to add, before I do the long arm quilting, I do need to add some applique work. There's very little, but I will do that prior to putting it on the long arm. The bee skep was really fun. And you can see how it sits on its little stand there. And then the final calico garden stars all the way around. You can see the pretty wide, so you have the sashing strips with the lighter blue, the same one that's in the doors, and then the larger border strips. And those are actually cut so that those are not pieced. They're pieced. What I mean is I didn't have to piece sections of it together to create it long enough. Lori actually gives you directions how to use the length of the fabric instead of cutting widthwise. So you're cutting 4.5 inch strips lengthwise of the entire amount of fabric that they give you, which was good that they gave you a little extra because I actually cut it wrong the first time. I didn't cut this wrong when I was cutting the length of it and then subcutting it into smaller pieces. I cut my fold, so I cut it smaller than I needed. But that entire length on the sides and on the bottoms, none of those are pieced together, meaning I didn't have to piece this section together. That is one whole piece down the side, one whole piece across the bottom, which was a nice thing. So this is a very large quilt. I don't have the measurements here in front of me, but it is a very large quilt. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it when I'm done, but I'm excited to have it pieced finally and to get that on the long arm. So one of the other things I wanted to talk to you today about is some texture. So these are my own quilts here, the 3 that are on the ladder. And these are in our living room during the fall season. And I was sitting on the couch. This top quilt here, I've shown all of these before, but the top one was one I made last year. And I'll link the pattern for that and everything down below. But I made that last year, and it hangs on an apple ladder in the corner of our living room. And I was just noticing it while sitting on the couch a couple days ago, that when I did the quilting on that one, I did something that on first glance is very simple. This is a pattern, I believe this is called Rumble. It's done by Jess Ziegler of the Long Arm League, and it is you can see it's just it's like a large zigzag across the quilt. But I just noticed when I was sitting on the couch the other day how striking this is. When I did this quilt on the long arm, I could have chosen a pumpkin pattern. I could have chosen a real swirly with the pumpkins and the vines and everything, and it would have looked okay, but it would have given it a totally different look. And I am just realizing over time that, like I mentioned a little bit ago, I really like texture. I just really like the effect that this gives. So what seems to be very simple is very striking. So again, like I talked about with the Calico Garden, I could go with a garden theme for my pantograph, but the quilt itself carries the theme. And so I almost like to do a texture print instead, like I did on this one. I like that look. I think it's a secondary, a secondary design. So I just want to encourage you to kind of think along those lines when you're picking pantographs for your quilts, don't always say, oh, well, there's, a swirl here in this fabric, and so I need to use a swirl. You can, and there's no problem with using a swirl. But at the same time, you might want to choose something that is totally the opposite side. Not totally, but in a complementary way, but isn't just repeating what the quilt itself is. And so this is just an example. All this is just the zigzag, not a huge zigzag. You can see it's not a very, deep zigzag. But I just really like this. You could do the same thing with whether it's just a wave type print across. And it goes with the size of it. This is only probably, an inch apart. And I just really like the effect. Let me pull down this yellow one down here so you can see it as well. This one was an antique quilt top that I found. And it's been enough years ago. I assume I found it in a quilt store, not in a quilt store, in an antique store or something. But it was just the quilt top. So I added a backing, and I just went with a muslin backing on this one. But can you see the pantograph? Again, this is just, it did not repeat the leaf theme. I could have done that, and I have done that on some quilts. But this one is called Merge, and this is also a pattern by Jess Ziegler of the Longarm League. And look at the texture that it creates. I just... I like that look. I think it's very striking without having to repeat the same leaf pattern. Again, the quilt is carrying the theme, and so I am just adding texture on top of that. Lots of negative space with these large diamond spaces here. Lots of different fabrics. You can see, this is probably made from clothing or, reproduction fabrics. Not reproduction. These are the originals. But the only reason I wanted to show you this is just because, like I said, I was noticing it while I was sitting in the living room the other day, that with these quilts, I really, really like these quilts. And I think the reason is because of the texture that is added with the pantograph instead of just repeating the theme. Now this one here, I'll show you this one. I did do more of a swirly one. Let me show you this one real quick. This quilt was actually a sampler quilt that I did. This is one of my very first quilts. This is all flannels. This was done as a block of the month with a quilt store in Indianapolis that's actually no longer there. But it was, I want to say you paid $5 the first month, and you received a little packet that would give you all the fabrics and the instruction for this one block. And if you brought back the finished block the next month, then you got the next block for free. So you really, if you paid the original $5 and you brought a finished block back every month, then you could make the entire quilt top minus the backing and the sashing, none of the setting stuff, but each one of the blocks you could have made the entire quilt top for $5. Pretty incredible. So this one, it's all flannels, some coordinating prints. Every block is different. It was just a way of learning quilting. But you can see this design I chose. This is called Alfalfa. And again, this one, I like it. I feel this one worked well with the flowery print. Again, there were some flowery prints in here. I did it kind of tight. But do you see how this just softens up the quilt? This is flannel. This print really softens the quilt. Where those two quilts, the pantograph on top of it is a very striking one. And I guess I'm just trying to show you the difference between the two. This one, by adding the pantograph that's a little more swirl, a little more leafy kind, it just kind of softens the feel of the fabric, feels more homey maybe, I don't know, where those have a more of a modern feel. They have a more of a striking, filling up that negative space and that kind of thing. So just wanted to show you the difference in pantographs and how it kind of changes the look of the quilt. Pantographs. Don't be afraid to try something new. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You learn from each experience. When you're first, whether you're having somebody else quilt your quilts or whether you are doing it yourself, just learn from the experience of, let's try this pantograph and see what it works out. It's not going to be wrong. You may like some better than the others, and the longer you do it, the more you're going to decide that, yes, this is my style of quilting. So you're not going to be wrong. Just try it. And over time, I'm seeing that I really like the texture of quilting on a quilt. All right, so let's move on to some customer quilts. So Julie's quilt here is made from a pattern from Laundry Basket Quilts, and the name of this pattern is Holiday Forest, and she even said all of the fabrics are made from Laundry Basket Quilt Company. So that's Edyta Sitar is the owner of Laundry Basket Quilts, and she is a pattern designer as well as a fabric designer. And so all of these trees come from various fabrics from her line, so all of the greens and even the reds. When you go on Edyta Sitar's website, she sells her fabric. You can buy it by line, but you can also buy it by colorway. So if you're just wanting the green for these trees, you can go onto there and go onto the green part and just pick out different greens that match. I like the way Julie has interchanged all of these. Now last week we had the legendary quilt where each tree was done in one fabric way. And so here's what it looks like if you do each tree with different fabric ways. So each one of the triangles is done with different fabrics, and even the trunk of the tree is done with greens in this quilt. Now these are not done by, I have not seen the pattern, but in looking at it, these are not where you're cutting on the bias. It's not the way I would do it anyway. Honestly, I have not seen the pattern. But these trees are very easily done by starting with a rectangle here, having a larger rectangle in the white, and then laying it like you would join binding, where you're laying it perpendicular to one another and creating that seam and then folding it back. That's the way I would do it. I don't know that the pattern does it that way, but don't be afraid of having to sew on the bias. I do not like to sew on bias, so I do not like to cut triangles and try to match up piecing with triangles. So anytime I see a quilt like this, I'm assuming that that's the way it's done. It may not be, but that's the way I would prefer to do it, is always joining rectangles or squares together to create that triangle effect without having to sew on the bias. The background fabric, the white and background are not Edyta Sitar. The white and the backing fabric are not Edyta Sitar. This is some sort of a white, I don't know the name of this line, but it's a cream background base, and then it's got some white squigglies over the top of it. Looks very similar to the blue quilt we did many weeks ago, and I'll have to look up if that was a what line that was, because this may be the same line, just in a cream color. So each one of the squares, each one of the trees is a separate square. So these are all rectangles here with the red in the middle. Really cute. So the backing fabric, this is just a Joann Fabrics print, so you can probably find that in the stores there. A very fallish feel to that one. For the pantograph, we chose the Ginger Snap pantograph, and we've seen this a lot. This is one that Julie asked for. She's seen it here on the videos, and she asked for that. It's a cute one. This one is such a versatile print, and I probably say that every week, but such a versatile print. You know, we've used it on baby quilts, we've used it on large quilts, we've used it on fall quilts, and whether this is Christmas or fall, what you would decide, it works really well. So we chose a cream color thread to match with this cream color backing fabric. And I did bring some threads with me today so I can show you kind of the differences in different colors. So the one I used for this one is 3004. That is, can you see that? That is cream. I always use Omni threads. I've tried some other brands. Omni just works really well in my machine. I like to stick with one brand because then I don't have to mess with tension so much. I know that my machine works well on this thread, and so that's what I've stuck with. Omni has tons and tons of colors, so I'm never short of looking for specific colors. And what I like is they have so many different shades of grays, so many different shades of greens, but especially cream colors and tans and whites, so that we can really match whichever one I'm wanting, whatever effect we're wanting on this. So this is 3004. This is called Cream. Omni is a product made by Superior Threads. They have lots of other lines as well. Omni's the one that I have used for many years and just trust and really enjoy it. So 3004. So here is one. This is 3005. This is Almond. And I believe I have this on another quilt here coming up. Do you see just the very tad bit of difference? Just one number off, so that means they're really close together. And but depending on the quilt, it can look different. And so this one I chose the cream color. Now this is not a good representation because this is a ton of fabric on top of the quilt. When I am auditioning threads for long arming, I will pull off some, lay it across the quilt just to see what one thread looks like. Now, depending on how dense the pattern is, you know, I may lay several threads, just kind of squiggle lines over each other so I can see how it blends in, to see how it's going to look on colored fabric, to see how it's going to look on the cream color fabric. So then if I do the same thing with the 3005, which is called Almond, I can just kind of decide, you know, this is a tad bit darker. Do I like this one better? A little bit creamier. And I picked the cream because I think it blends with this background fabric better. I also auditioned it on the colors just to see which one I like. And to be honest, I don't have any hard and fast rules. It's really what I feel from the quilt. It's when I lay these out, do I want the quilting to really stand out? What are the colors that I'm laying it against? What the client is inclined to. Some clients really like the pops of color. They really like a contrast. Others prefer more a subtle look, and where the quilting really blends in and it's a secondary design. So it really just depends. You kind of develop your own style. And you just try it, okay? One of my mentors always says, clarity comes in the doing. So you just keep trying. Try something, you know, try a different color. I didn't really like this. Well, you can make another quilt. You can work on another project. You learn from the experience. So clarity comes in the doing. You just keep trying something new and just keep stepping ahead. And you kind of develop your own repertoire, your own thinking, your own style, and your own likes and dislikes. You won't know whether you like it or not until you try it, so don't be afraid to try it. And I will continue to show you some other colors that I have off camera right here as I'm going through some of the other quilts so that you can kind of see the difference in different quilt tops. But that is Julie's quilt. This one measures 39 by 52, so you could use it as a wall hanging, you could use it as draped over a couch, on a chair, something like that. Really cute. You could even add borders. I've not looked at the pattern per se to see how it's put together, but if you want a larger quilt, add some more borders. You can add some more lines of trees. Another aspect that I like about this is I like that the trees are not all on one line, and all it's done is by adding one more what looks like a 2.5 inch strip right there, and dropping this one down a little bit, and then on the tree next to it, the 1.5 inch or the 2.5 inch strip is on the bottom side of the tree, creating, so our block sizes are the same, but we're changing the effect. It gives your eye some movement to work across the quilt, a little more interest than just being straight across. You could do so many designs with this. I mean, you could make them all the same and add some white lattice in between with some cornerstones, or maybe a star block or something in between as cornerstones with some white sashing in between each of the blocks. You could do so much with this one pattern. Super cute. All right, let's move on to the next one. So another neat thing about this quilt is Joy used a Moda scrap bag. So a Moda scrap bag is the ends of the fabric when Moda is cutting pre-cuts. So layer cakes and charm squares, jelly rolls, when they're cutting those, then they have the selvage edge left. And so in a Moda scrap bag, they'll have anything, they say anywhere from 2 to 4 inch pieces from across the bottom, depending on what they're cutting from the rest of the material. They will package that, all of the scraps from that line, into a bag, and then vendors can sell that. So Fat Quarter Shop has some. Joy actually purchased hers from Quilt in a Day, but there are other vendors. You can check with your favorite quilt store and see if they carry these Moda scrap bags. So it's not, you're not going to be able to find, you may not be able to find your specific line that you're looking for, but it's a neat challenge to take what you find in that bag and to create a quilt from it. So Joy found this pattern from Quilted Thimble Cottage. Am I saying that correctly? From Quilted Thimble Cottage, and that she used the Creative Grids ruler, the square triangle ruler, to create these triangle effects. So Moda says that you may only get 2 to 4 inches, but you're going to have the selvage on there as well. So Joy said on hers she had 2-inch pieces, so she had to find a pattern that would use those 2-inch pieces. Now, Fat Quarter Shop also sells some scrap bags that are 5-yard scrap packs, and it says they are 1/2 yard to 1 1/4 yards, and they sell assorted colors. So like right now they have a Bella Solids one, and it's 5 yards of fabric, and normally sells for $42. They have that on sale right now, so you can go check that out. And let me see what other ones I can find that Fat Quarter Shop has right now. So they have the Bella Solids, and these are in the 5 yards. So they have the Blossom one by Christopher Thompson. So if you remember my Scrappy Spools block, I have the white background fabric that I'm using on all the spools. That's a Blossom print by Christopher Thompson. That's the white colorway. So they have a 5-yard scrap pack that has all of the different colorways, or whatever the scraps they have. They have a Kimberbell one as well, and the 5-yard one. And that's all I see right now. So those 3. So a Kimberbell, a Blossom, and a Bella Solids in the 5 yards. So the Moda scrap bags, they include, let me look real quick. The bag includes approximately 1/2 pound of coordinated fabric strips. So it's going to be 1 line. This one was the Smoke and Rust line by by Lella Boutique. And this one we'll get to in just a minute. So they're not going to be different lines, at least in the Moda one. They're going to keep 1 line together. So a 1/2 pound of coordinating fabric scraps, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches wide, but that does include the selvage. So you might want to check those out and see if your quilt store carries those, and if there's something you could make from this. So Joy's quilt measures 52 by 60, so she still made a good sized quilt even from the scraps. And the tutorial on how to create these is linked down below. So Joy said it was like a treasure hunt to find other fabrics that went along with that same line. This is her backing fabric, and I'm assuming this is also a Lella Boutique Bella Black. She said there's a Bella Black solid in here as well. Oh, that's for the bind, for these, this one right here. So she's got this small border strip around here. She says that's a Bella Black solid. And then the backing and the background yardage is from the Smoked and Rust line. And that's where she had to do a little treasure seeking, because she had this line, the Smoke and Rust line from the Moda scrap bag, but then she went in search of some yardage to use for the borders, for the blocks, and for the backing fabric. Really cute backing fabric. Especially, you know, it has a lot of the same triangles and geometric shapes to it. So for the pantograph, we did something pretty interesting with this one. So the pattern is created with the triangles going up. If you look at the tutorial and the way Joy made it, the triangles all going up. So it almost looks like teepees. So when I sent her pantograph choices for this one, I said, Joy, I want to kind of throw something out that's a little out of the box, but what do you think about this? And I asked her to think about using the Bookmarks pantograph, which is also by Jess Ziegler of Longarm League. I mentioned her several times in those quilts. But the Bookmark pantograph, when it stitches out, it actually stitches with the points going down. Let me grab that so you can see what it looks like. So this is what the pantograph stitches out like. So the arrows are all pointing downwards. So when I sent this to Joy, I said, what do you think about me loading the quilt upside down on the long arm, so that when, and it'll stitch out like this, but when we turn it over, then the arrows would be in the same direction as the triangles on her quilt. So she actually, in an email, she said she watched, I think she said she watched one of my other videos where I showed this pantograph, and she turned her iPad upside down so she could see what the pantograph would look like. Isn't that a great idea? And she said, yeah, let's try it. So this is what we did. So you can see it on the quilt. And that way the triangles, or the points, all point up. So when I loaded it on the long arm, I actually loaded it this direction. And that's the way that the pantograph stitches out. But when Joy uses the quilt, whether she drapes it or whether she hangs it, it is oriented this direction. Sorry for the stray threads. So what do you think of that idea? Again, a lot of texture. This one adds just so much texture with that. Really emphasizes the same theme. So here I was talking about doing something opposite. Here we have used texture to emphasize the same theme. So many choices. So many choices. And it really depends on your style. So Joy was, you know, that's what I saw when I saw this quilt, and so I offered that to her. I offered some other ones as well. She did ask for some geometric patterns, so I knew that the Bookmark pantograph wasn't totally out of what she would like, because she had already asked for some geometric patterns, and she had suggested some, and then so I just threw it out there, and she was willing to try it. So the thread we used on this one, did I write it down? Medium gray. So let me show you what that one looks like. This is the medium gray by Omni. This is 3024. And I brought in a lighter gray. This one is 3023. So you can see the difference. And there is another one that's 3025 that is just a tad bit darker. I didn't bring that one in. But on Joy's quilt, we used the 3024, which was this one, especially because this is a black fabric right here. You know, a pretty dark black and gray fabric. So I like this medium one. Maybe could have gone to the next darker one, but then I was afraid it would have been too dark on some of these lighter triangles. And because of the backing fabric. So if you saw the backing fabric, it was a lighter gray. and I always like to try to match the tone from the front to the back. This was a happy medium, literally, between, because this backing is a lot lighter, and so actually the lighter gray would have matched this backing a little bit better, but it would have been too light, I felt like, on the front of this one. Do you see how it stands out a little bit more? Let me drape this over. It was pretty noticeable on that one. So going with a little bit of darker here, and then my bobbin thread, I have a little darker gray bobbin that I used for this. And I think it turned out really well. I really liked it. So just some different choices about colors and what to do with the thread choices there, and to think about your pantographs in a little different way. Really cute. All right, let's move on to Joy's second quilt, and this is a Christmas one. So Joy's second quilt is also made from a Moda scrap bag. This is a Lella Boutique line called Christmas Morning. And so this one is an older line that Lella Boutique out. She actually has a new line out called Christmas Eve that matches this wonderful, and you'll see some of those fabrics in here as well. So Joy says that she used a pattern called Star Watch, and that's done by Carried Away Quilting. This is a really cute pattern. So you can see these log cabin blocks, but then we have this one row of star blocks, which is so cute. I mean, just so cute. It's just different idea. With this little square, it moves in different spots through that line of stars. So Joy said the challenge was, though, because that pattern is written for a jelly roll quilt. And because she's using a Moda scrap bag, she didn't have 2.5-inch strips. She ended up having to cut the selvage off, so it left her with 2-inch strips, so she had to modify some with 2-inch strips. So then she chose, so all of the middle squares, most of the middle squares I want to say, is the Christmas Morning line. She then, this white fabric here, she used different strip pieces from a Whispers scrap bag, Moda scrap bag that she found. So Whispers was another Moda line. So you can see different piecing in there. So that's what she used for those. And then she was able to find yardage in the one called Tangles to complete the horizontal sashing and the outside borders. So, and actually this may be the same one in the tree quilt we were talking about earlier, the Tangles one. It looks very similar. So what she's saying is the sashing here, the vertical sashing, she used the pieces from the Whispers Moda scrap bag. And then for the vertical or the horizontal sashing between the rows and the first border around the edge, she used the Tangles line for that. So, and it all, you know, this is from the Whispers, that's a Tangles one, that's a Tangles one, but Whispers, so in the whole effect of the quilt, you don't see those differences, not till you get up close, and they all match wonderful, not a problem there. I do think Joy added a third border, or a couple different borders, more than the original pattern, which is really cute. I really like the red and the green and the red again. This outside border is from Lella Boutique's new line, which is Christmas Eve line, and Joy says the backing fabric is also from Lella Boutique's new line called Christmas Eve. I love the plaid. That is just adorable. Love the plaid. Now, pantograph for this one, I like the softness of this quilt, so I didn't want to go with texture. And actually, I think Joy mentioned a few lines. Yeah, she asked for mistletoe or Moulin Rouge, and I thought the mistletoe went really well with this one. Mistletoe has a Christmas name to it. I don't think it's an overly Christmas pantograph. It does work well on this Christmas pantograph, but don't think by the name that you can only use it on Christmas quilts. I think it's a swirly one that looks really well. Let me grab that one so you can see it too. So this is what mistletoe looks like. So like I said, it has a Christmas name, but to me it doesn't have to only be on Christmas quilts. I think this is a classy pattern. I like the feather hint that it has right here, but then you have the swirls as well. And this is the one we chose. Now Joy also mentioned this one, the Moulin Rouge, if that's how you pronounce that. Now this one, while I like this one too, and on certain quilts this is perfect. This one to me has a little more playful feel, and I really felt with Joy's quilt it was more of a classy quilt. And so, not that this one would have been bad, but I think this one just has a little more playful feel. Again, I love the hint to feathers in here. And you notice it echoes those again, which creates much more density. This is a denser pattern than the Moulin Rouge, or than the mistletoe one. The mistletoe has a little bit more open space. Do you see in those swirls? Where this one, the swirls are a little tighter, and it echoes those feather prints around the outside again. I like this one. I think it adds a lot of texture. But for this quilt, I thought this one was a better choice. And so that's what we used on this one. Now I also want to show you espresso. We've seen espresso a lot of times. And compare espresso with mistletoe. So again, espresso is maybe even a little more open than mistletoe. See in the swirls, you've got a little more open space here, and then as it comes back out, so a little more open space. Then you have this one, mistletoe, which is a little bit tighter, and then it adds in those feather baubles. I don't know what you call those feather pieces. All right, so there's those two, and then we go with Moulin Rouge, which adds in a tighter swirl, and then with the echoing of those feathers, and creates a different design. So you can almost kind of see the progression of the density. All great pantographs, and again, you're not going to go wrong. Don't feel like you're going to choose the wrong pantograph. There is no such thing as the wrong pantograph. And you try one, and well, you know, maybe next time I want a little more density, or I want a little more open space, and we go with that. Thread color on this one. Let me see if I wrote it down. I don't see it written down, but in looking at it, this is a white thread. So let me show you the white. Right now I have a bright white. This is 3001. I have on order the next one down, which I think is 3002, and it's not the bright. And I like that choice too. And I'll show you that one when it arrives, but you can see the white on there. With all the white background fabric, white was the best choice for that one. Really cute, and I just love how you see the design on the colored parts of this as well. Really fun. All right, let's move on to another. So Dawn is making this quilt for a young widow, and the story is very sad but very sweet at the same time. So Dawn says these shirts were given to her to create a quilt for a widow whose 39-year-old husband died of ALS, and he leaves his wife and 3 young kids, and so Dawn was asked to take his shirts and to create a quilt for his widow. And while a sad story, I think this is such a tribute, and such a special thing for this widow to be able to lay on her bed and to feel him close to her. I mean, doesn't that just touch your heart? And so what I like what Dawn did with the quilt is that she took the shirts, found a pattern. She said the daughter, she said the widow had seen a quilt that Dawn had made for her own daughter with the granny squared quilt pattern. The great granny squared quilt pattern. This is a Lori Holt pattern. It's actually a whole book. This is one book of Lori's I do not have, but I certainly want. And so what she did was take the shirts and then add some other fabrics with it to create each one of the blocks. So like what I'm assuming is like this print here, it looks like a man's shirt, and then she's added in some other fabrics with that coordinate with that shirt color. This one, I don't know which one's the man. Oh, probably this one here. I see it now. So the white print here, it's got, you know, it looks very much like a man's button-down shirt with the pink and blue lines, and then she's added the blue fabric and the pink fabric. Down in this one, we have an orange and blue shirt, and then she's added the orange with it. She's just done a marvelous job of coordinating fabrics with the shirt prints. She's done a really, really good job. I love this idea. All of the cornerstones then that you see are actual shirt prints, and then all around the edges she's created those diamonds, and how you create those is you start with the square of the backing of the background fabric, which would be in this case the shirt fabric. You start with a square of that, and then you're adding 4 easy corner triangles onto each sides of that, pressing those back, and it creates that diamond effect. Very similar to what I used in the press, what I did in one of the press flower blocks this week as well. All of those diamond prints all the way around the entire quilt are done in shirt prints, which is really special. So this quilt measures, it's measured 73 by 86. There were 20 granny squared blocks, so there were 4 across and 5 down. Then she has separated each one of the blocks with a white sashing, and then you get the cornerstones in the middle. Lots of white space, lots of negative space. The white, I believe, is just a solid. I don't know that she tells me that, but it just looks like a Bella solid or one of those, just a white print. The backing fabric is this blue here, and then you can really see the pantograph. She asked for the rainbow hearts pantograph. I like the texture that added, and just the sentiment of it as well. Really nice. Because of all the white fabric on the front, I did go ahead and use a white thread on this one, so it really shows up on the backing, on that blue backing fabric, but I didn't want to distract in any way from the shirts on the front and the piecing on the front, and so all in white, it just adds the texture in those, and the negative space there in the white all the way around. So the heart itself is smaller than my fist, and then you have the rainbow, so it's, you know, it measures probably 4 inches tall, is that the pantograph. I really like this pantograph. It nests in really well, and I talked about this on another video, so I won't pull this in close. This is a pretty heavy quilt because it's so big, but the when you're creating the rainbow, the top of one rainbow stitches with the heart above it, and so they nest very well into each other. I also offset the rows so that you know, you have rainbow, 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 and then the next one fits up inside, if that makes sense. So the rainbows are like that, you know, and you don't have a lot of extra space. So a really special tribute, and I'm really happy to be a part of this one. So like I said, the man died from ALS. If you're familiar with Quilter's Dream batting, every package of their batting includes a sheet on the back side where they talk about donations for ALS patients. My understanding is that the original founder of Quilter's Dream, his grandson contracted ALS many years later, both the original owner of Quilter's Dream, the founder, and the grandson have both passed away at this point, but Quilter's Dream continues to carry on their legacy and want to help out with ALS research. So every year they sponsor where you can, they sponsor a quilt contest where you can send in quilts, and they do award prizes for different categories, and then either they sell those quilts and use the money and give to ALS research, or they pass those quilts on to ALS patients, whichever one would be the most benefit. So if it's an especially beautiful quilt that they know that they can create a lot of support from, then they will sell that and then use the money to, and 100% of the proceeds goes to ALS research. None is kept for anything, any shipping or anything. And then the other quilts that they can then pass on to the ALS patients. And so it's a really great cause, and just made me think of that when Dawn talked about this quilt and the importance of this one, that would be a great way if you have donation quilts that you want to make. That would be a great cause to send it to. And every package of Quilter's Dream has the information, and you can also go to their website and find out information about how to get quilts and the sizes that they need and specifications that are needed for that. So let's move on to another customer quilt. I literally have lost count on how many of these designer mystery quilts that I have done, but like I say, every time I do not tire of these. They are so fun to do. And so this is the 2022 designer mystery quilt put out by Fat Quarter Shop. Each one of the blocks is made by a different designer, and this uses Nantucket Summer, which is a Camille Roskelley fabric line. Huge success. If you want to make this quilt, her new line is coming out in the spring. Spring has very much the same colorway and feel to it. It's just super, super pretty. The patterns for this are still available on Fat Quarter website, and I will link that down below. This is just a classy quilt, and I really, really like this. So you do have the setting blocks as well, and then all of the other blocks are created by different designers. So Bridget asked if I could do her quilt, and she asked if I would use the Clamshell Duchess pantograph, and you've seen that one on other quilts as well. Again, it's just a classy quilt. The Clamshell Duchess, a Baptist fan look to it, but with the clamshell in the middle. So a very classy design as well. This is a large quilt. It measures 89 by 89. This one was 89 by 89. Just a beautiful quilt. I used the same white thread for this one because the backing, the background fabric is white. So again, it's this Omni 3001, which is the bright white in the Clamshell Duchess. And this same backing fabric that we've seen on these, just classy. I just really love it. Really, really love it. Bridget did a really nice job, and so that will be going back to her this week. And this was a super fun quilt to work on. This is Dee Dee's, and she said that The reason she finished this is because I say at the end of every video, every quilt is worth finishing, and this one was no exception. She started it many years ago and decided it was time to finish it. So this was originally a pattern published in McCall's Quilting magazine back in 2006, 2007. I did find a link for this though where you can just buy the pattern. This is called Stairway to Cat Heaven, and you can see the cats climbing the stairs and just enjoying a playful night out. The original pattern shows it in blues, but look how nice it looks with the pinks and the blacks. Really fun. And all different kinds of pinks. It's not just cat prints. I mean, there was Eiffel Tower, and there were some buses, there's shoes, there's squiggles, there's stripes, there's cars, and all different ones done. So you can see the squares. These are done as 9 patches. All the way down, and then the next one coming up, but all done in pinks and blacks. The cats are all appliqued down, machine appliqued down. Now, if you notice on this one, we used a black thread. Now this is so cool, and the reason the black thread works on this one is because it creates that same nighttime feel. So Dee Dee went with stars and clouds because, again, it's that nighttime theme. And so could have we have done cats? You could have done cats, but I really like this nighttime theme, and the black thread keeps the quilt kind of dim, and it works really well on this. Would you want to use black on every quilt? No. This one, it works because of the nighttime theme. And the other good thing about using black on this one is because the black blends right in with the cat's applique, the appliqued cats, and you don't see the quilting. From a distance, you don't see the quilting on the cats at all, so that they really stand up. This is an all-over pantograph, so the pantograph is stitched right over the cats as well. But that black thread blends in with those cats, and they really stand out. You don't have, so if we had used a white one, then that would have covered the white would have covered the black cats, and I think it would have distracted from their appearance there, the silhouettes that you see, the nighttime feel for it. So just a really cool effect for this one. Now, Dee Dee had a pink fabric on the back. Because I need to match the bobbin and the front, then it is that black on the back. Again, it's just creating almost like a second quilt. You could turn this over and have the, get it in close. I got some sunshine coming in there, and you would think sunshine would be good for filming. It's not. So you can see how the black, obviously it's going to stand out on the pink, but you've got really a double quilt then. So you could turn this over and have just your stars and your clouds if you wanted that. So really fun. I just think this is going to a granddaughter or something, I think she said. So somebody is really going to enjoy this one. And you can see the different cats. Some climbing, some sitting, some resting. And then the moon. The moon's sparkly. It's a sparkle fabric there. Really fun. Then you got the piano keys border all the way around. Now notice the squares. These are what I would call wonky stars, where you just lay different fabrics down and just stitch. So you would start with a black square, and then you're going to lay your other fabric across there. Just stitch a diagonal line and press it back, and that way you get all these different points. How fun is that? And she's used different ones on each one. Let me see this corner. And I did a quilt like this of my own, actually my in-person guild, where we did a block swap with wonky stars, and we used a white background and then all different colors in here. And you start with that square and you sew a different fabric in a diagonal. You know, this one's skinny, this one's larger, it doesn't matter. This one's shorter, this one's longer, and it makes those wonky stars. Really fun. And the whole piano keys border around the edge, 9 patches in the middle. Really fun. And Dee Dee said these were all fabrics from her stash, something she started long ago and decided that every quilt was worth finishing, so she was going to finish it. Really fun. All right, let's move on to an Oregon duck quilt. So are you needing a quick Christmas gift? Is somebody in your family a sports fan? And this would be a great quilt to make. Lori has done a really nice job with this. So she has taken some NCAA licensed fabric, and if you've been into Joann's or a store like that recently, you know that they have probably about every team you could ever think of. And so she has taken a couple different ones. Let me slide this across. And she has fussy cut those for the center of her stars. So here's one. She's got these two different ones and they alternate throughout the block. And then she has used a sawtooth star around each one of those blocks. So Oregon duck colors are the red, where did I get that? Are the green and the yellow. So she has used fabrics in the yellow to make the stars, and then the rest of it in the green. Done all the sashing in the black, and then just alternated those there. Now, if you notice down here, she has used her embroidery machine and created the word Oregon on a black square and done it with the yellow thread. She was a bit concerned that this didn't lay flat enough. When you are working on your embroidery machine, I don't do embroidery, but you know, she felt like it was kind of scrunching up a little bit. But when you put that piece then into a quilt block, and if you cut it to the size and then you put it in the quilt block, the rest of the quilt block is going to kind of create that it's the right size, and then the quilting just goes right over the top of it. I didn't have any trouble stitching through that at all. We did the diagonal plaid pantograph on this one. I love this pantograph, if you've not heard me say that before. Such a versatile print. We used it a couple times last week on, I know on the Legendary quilt, and then there was another one that I can't think of at the top of my mind what we used it on, but it's just a lot of texture. I like it on a lot of masculine quilts, a lot of t-shirt quilts I use it on. I think it's just a great one. Backing fabric, she used this Oregon duck backing. And again, not the same two prints that she used on the front, a little bit bigger, but you could have used these for the squares as well. So a really nice one if you're needing a gift for somebody for Christmas. I think this one would be a, or even for birthdays, or, you know, be a great tailgating quilt or something like that. Just really, really cute. The thread for this one, we used a gray, and let me show you. This is the lighter gray. Because we had the yellow squares, gray was a good choice. Gray is a neutral, especially on these types of colors. I didn't want to go with the medium gray because of the yellow here. I didn't want to darken those at all. And you've got the gray backing here. You've got a lot of gray in these prints anyway. So the light gray works well. And then the bobbin thread was a light gray. So it's just adding texture onto the back. And not distracting from the fabrics at all. And gray works on black really well too. So you can see how it stands out though, and if we would have used a lighter color on those cats, then the cats wouldn't have been as dark. The silhouette type effect would have been lessened, I think. So really fun. Really fun. So Lori will be getting this back. Now I do have another quilt of Lori's that went back many weeks ago, but I realized I had never shown it, so here is a picture of that one. And this quilt of Lori's is called Hugs and Kisses. This is from Charming Baby Quilts book done by Melissa Corey, and I'll link that down below for you. This was done for a baby shower, I believe. The fabrics in this one are called Pie in the Sky by Tilda. And you can see the X's and O's, the hugs and kisses. So the blues, all Tilda, the red, they're coordinating fabrics. They're just in the two different colorways. The background, so the white, is called Cotton Clouds 40 Karat Gems by Wilmington. Really cute. And then the backing fabric is also a Tilda print as well. So for the pantograph, we kept the flower theme going on this one, and we used a pantograph called Trellis, and Trellis is a very viney, a lot of texture there as well. It really adds into the negative space, and then on the colored prints you really don't see it at all. It blends right in with those flower prints so that those X's and O's really stand out, but it added a lot of texture onto the white parts. So really pretty. So fun. Looks like a fairly simple quilt. I mean, a lot of a lot of easy corner triangles there, just done in a couple different ways, and a really cute quilt. So I didn't want to miss sharing that one of Lori's that she's already had back for a little bit. So those are the customer quilts for this week. I am so glad you've joined me this week. If you are in need of long arm quilting services, I hope that you will get your information to me. So there's a link down below that will where you can download the long arm prep instructions and the order form. It has all the information about how you can get your quilt to me. I'd love to see what you're working on, so I hope you'll send me some pictures. And as I always say, every quilt is worth finishing, so I hope you're making lots of time to quilt, and we will see you next week.